Happy Friday. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop with you for the Center Square. You can follow along at thecentersquare.com, where you can keep updated on the latest of what's happening in your capital. But obviously, if you go to thecentersquare.com, you'll be able to sign up for the newsletter and get the latest in your inbox. But you can be right here daily to get some highlights and big things happening at the Center Square. Yesterday, we had to end the live feed here for some technical issues, but that we're working on all kinds of things here to get ready for some big things. I'm not quite ready to tell you exactly, but stay with the Center Square for more. All right. But in the meantime, Illinois in Focus still ongoing as the Illinois House was in session yesterday. And they honored House Speaker Chris Welch for being the Illinois House Speaker for 5 years, and his tenure as the first black Speaker of the Illinois House comes after a 30-plus year run of the former Illinois House Speaker, Mike Madigan. And also, after Madigan went to prison for corruption, being found guilty of several corruption charges by federal prosecutors and a jury of his peers. And that was a long investigation, revelations in 2020, and Speaker Madigan at that time, he stepped down in 2021, and everything kind of fell into place there. But yesterday, they were in for 30, 45 minutes. Nothing really done as far as substantive policy, but they're gearing up for some big discussions to be had about the state budget. So we're going to be focusing a bit on that today with Governor J.B. Pritzker highlighting he's got $500 million in, quote, efficiencies and reserves that his state agencies were tasked to find, and he says they found them, and this is all before the governor delivers his budget address in about 3 weeks. So that's going to be coming up next month. Plus, we're going to have to tackle some of the latest in gun litigation, with the U.S. Supreme Court set to again consider the case challenging the Viramontes gun ban challenge out of Cook County, which says, it's against the law. It's against the Constitution to ban certain types of firearms. So that's something else that's very much going to be a interesting thing to follow for Monday after conference, when the U.S. Supreme Court could announce whether or not they're going to actually take that case up. And for those keeping score, the Barnett case that's still in the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals is still in the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals. They have yet to release their decision. So that's, again, where we're at. We're going to be checking in with what some of the latest conversation about the state's finances are from Governor J.B. Pritzker and Republican House leadership, and so much more. All right, so stay tuned. It's right here with Illinois in Focus Daily, only with the Center Square. Still getting used to the new button layout, guys.
Our SNAP rate under the governor has gone from 6% to 11%. That's money that is going to places that it shouldn't be. Why not work to reduce that instead of blaming Donald Trump and the Republicans on the national level saying it's their fault? No, the buck stops with the governor and the majority party. They've had majority rule for 5 decades minus 2 or 3 years. It's time that they actually do something.
Illinois House Minority Leader Tony McCombie addressing members of the media earlier this week as Republicans held their news conference to update taxpayers on what's going on with their spending plan and the various priorities that there may be at the State House with competing interests and a whole host of other things. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop with you each and every weekday morning as we break down what's going on to keep you informed as taxpayers. All right, so we've got the ongoing conversations about the spending, and the governor yesterday putting out a press release spelling out that they have found some reserves. So here's the governor's news release. It says that following Governor J.B. Pritzker's executive orders directing state agencies to prepare for federal economic disruptions, the governor's Office of Management and Budget releasing its fiscal year 26 budget reserves list, identifying funds with the current fiscal year 26 enacted budgets that agencies have been directed to reserve to help mitigate fiscal risk amid ongoing economic uncertainty driven by the Trump administration. Last September, the governor says that he directed state agencies to identify up to 4% of their fiscal year 26 general funds appropriations and to have those as reserves and safeguard against potential federal funding changes and broader economic risks. The governor's executive order also directs agencies to begin limiting non-essential spending purchases and travel priority, only essential roles for hiring. So you've got $481 million, and they say that no funding for pension or K through 12 education was impacted, but you can see here the breakdown of the nearly $500 million the governor's office says they've found inefficiencies. Healthcare and Human Services, $36.15 million, higher education, $30.5 million, public safety, $22 million, economic development, environment and culture, $10.3 million, and government services, $57.2 million. Now, the governor is set to deliver his budget address coming up in the next 3 weeks, and that is going to be revealing as to what exactly he plans to share in the plans for spending your tax dollars. And the governor has increased spending by $16 billion in the past 7 years, 40+% spending increase. You've seen tax increases go up and up and up and up. You've seen the ongoing issue of fee increases and questions about government spending. So clearly those are ongoing questions that are going to be raised as the discussions continue on, is the governor's administration of state agencies appropriate? Is it being done efficiently? Why is it that we now have this executive order coming into effect to find those funds? Here is State Representative Amy Ellick from earlier this week. She laid out what she believes is problematic when it comes to transparency on how state tax dollars are being spent.
We were hopeful last fall with the governor's executive order that would force agencies to identify waste or redundancies within their agency. Instead, when we sought answers about their work through a FOIA request, that request was denied. That's not reform, that's avoidance and political theater using official executive orders.
So Ellick saying that they tried to find out exactly where the governor was looking to cut, but they couldn't get that information via FOIA. And literally hours after Ellick revealed that, again, you get this news statement from the governor talking about $500 billion in efficiencies in state spending. Governor Pritzker earlier this week, before releasing that, says he has a pretty good idea of where they're going to have to find some savings.
I can say I'm pretty well aware of where we need to go, what resources are necessary, and the challenges that we face today. I mean, we have to balance the budget in the face of Donald Trump taking money away from the state, and then continue to march toward the progress that we want in early childhood.
So the governor clearly raising, the issue of being on top of spending and making sure that they have the savings where they can find them. You have Leader McCombie, Tony McCombie, House Republican leader. She talked about the budget process and just how important it is that it's transparent.
Well,
flat or lower would be ideal. There's been, since I got here in 2017, it was $36 billion for our general revenue fund. So that's certainly something that I hope there's no pork projects. I hope we're not going to fund illegal immigrants. Those would be a couple things. You could do some serious cuts. I hope they don't put another $40 million in Proviso High School.
And what that, the pork projects, the member district projects, these are obviously things that we're going to have discussions about as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year and the start of a new budget. And are taxpayers actually going to see those plans beforehand? It's a big question. But Governor J.B. Pritzker says that he's going to be discussing this in about 3 weeks, and he puts a lot of the blame on the Trump administration for what he says is cuts to human services.
The minute that we heard that Donald Trump was trying to take away child care from the state of Illinois, remember he picked 5 states and decided we're going to take these basic things that people need just to survive away. But he picked 5 blue states, states with Democratic governors. We immediately got a TRO to stop him from doing that. And of course, there'll be a case that will follow through. He's got no right. And it's clear from the law that, when you want to take funding away from a state like this, there are processes for determining whether or not that funding should be taken away. They did none of that. It was just like an announcement to punish his political opponents. And so I just want to be clear, we're going to continue to fight him in court. We're continuing to accept funding from the federal government because they've been pushed back on by the court. And then we're doing everything we can to fund at the state level to continue to allow people to get child care and early childhood education. But as I said earlier, so much more to do.
And we've been looking into just how much mispayments or overpayments there are for child care. We found that over 1,000 instances of overpayments in the state's child care system were had over the past 5 years. Which ones of those were fraud, we can't really tell. And that's another problem that Leader McCombie, the House Republicans, raises, is that there's not really much follow through with audit findings of not being able to track where your tax dollars are going. And you see these audit findings across the board. It's not just the child care funding, it's the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program money. McCombie saying that these audits seem to just sit on a desk somewhere.
I was on the audit commission, and Amy is now. Every year, every audit, or however often they have them, every new director sits at that table and defends the repeat findings by saying, well, I wasn't the director at that time, so this isn't going to, literally every single time. We should be looking within our own agencies. Yes, is it hard with the uncertainty? Absolutely. But the governor should also be open to having these things looked at. He should be doing it, not relying on the federal government to do it or the audit commission. He should be doing it himself, because those funds can be spent in a better place with our most vulnerable, instead of like our SNAP rate. Our SNAP rate under the governor has gone from 6% to 11%. That's money that is going to places that it shouldn't be. Why not work to reduce that instead of blaming Donald Trump and the Republicans on the national level saying it's their fault? No, the buck stops with the governor and the majority party. They've had majority rule for 5 decades minus 2 or 3 years. It's time that they actually do something.
What that actually looks like with the Democrats in the majority, are they going to shore up spending? Are we going to see the same level of spending? How is that going to ultimately play out for you, the taxpayer? Something we'll be watching closely as the weeks continue, as Governor J.B. Pritzker prepares to deliver his State of the State and budget address next month. All right, it is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop, and wake up with us here with the Center Square. And if it works, we'll be right back. All right, I think we should be back. So let's see how this does for the next segment. As it's been the past few weeks, we continue to wait to see what the U.S. Supreme Court's going to do about a case challenging Illinois and Cook County's gun and magazine ban. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop as we track what happens with the challenges against Illinois' gun laws, and in particular, the gun ban that went into effect January of 2023. Can you believe it? It's been almost 3 years since that was signed into law. Actually, I think it was January 11th of 2023 when it was signed into law. Lawsuits followed thereafter, and you had other lawsuits challenging local bans that then wrapped in the state ban into those challenges. And one of those cases, the case out of Cook County challenging the Cook County and statewide ban, has made it all the way through the judiciary. And now it's in front of the U.S. Supreme Court, and whether or not they're going to take it, we could find out next week. Again, welcome back. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. You can get the headlines in your inbox each and every weekday morning by going to thecentersquare.com and signing up for that newsletter. For those watching live, you've got people checking back in about the lip sync issues, and we'll see if the reset did anything before we have to do some more technical stuff. But regardless, if you can hear us, it's good. You can listen to the podcast really anywhere you get podcasts. Just search Illinois in Focus. But we'll also have segments of the show, corrected audio sync, for you to catch up on later. So let's get to this. Veramontes, the case out of Cook County. This is probably the third or fourth time it's been relisted going into conference to the U.S. Supreme Court. So when a case makes it all the way from the district courts through the appeals court and onto the U.S. Supreme Court on the merits, people ask the Supreme Court, can you take this case? The Supreme Court then goes into what they call a conference, and it's behind closed doors, and the justices discuss all of the different cases that they've been requested to take, and then they have an orders list that follows typically the Monday after, and that spells out which cases they are taking and which cases they are denying. And when there's no case on that list, like Veramontes, when we've checked the orders list, it's not on the orders list. That just means it's being relisted to go back to conference. And earlier this week, it was listed to go back to conference today. So the U.S. Supreme Court conferencing on Veramontes again today. Could we find out what happens? We'll be watching next week. But you still got the other case, the Barnett case challenging Illinois' gun ban that a district judge has found unconstitutional. The appeals court is still dealing with that particular challenge, and we have yet to get any kind of certainty on that. But it's been pretty busy as well at the Supreme Court. They did decline to take up a felony firearms case. This coming from Andrew Rice, the Center Square's reporter out of Washington, D.C. U.S. Supreme Court Tuesday declining to hear two cases over whether individuals with felony records can be permanently disarmed under the Second Amendment. The court declined to hear one case and another challenging target laws that ban individuals with felonies from possessing firearms. And so that case, obviously something that is being dealt with locally, and the Supreme Court's not taking them. But you also have the Hawaii case that the U.S. Supreme Court had, and you had advocates outside the U.S. Supreme Court looking for more clarity as they were hearing that case. Now, the Hawaii case, Wolford v. Lopez, challenges a Hawaii law that prevents concealed carry permit holders from going to gas stations, bars, restaurants, and several serve alcohol, beaches, and public parks without written or verbal consent from the property owner. So during the arguments Tuesday, gun rights advocates came out to the steps of the Supreme Court to express support for the Second Amendment. An argument analysts were particularly watching was drawing distinctions between free speech rights and gun rights on private property and open to the public. So this is going to be interesting what the U.S. Supreme Court does with this case, especially after hearing it. Here's here is what some advocates on the U.S. Supreme Court steps had to say about the issue.
So the default rule, basically the state says firearms are prohibited at private property otherwise open to the public. So grocery stores, that sort of thing. And we think that's overreach for the government to say that. Private property owners certainly have the right to prohibit firearms on their own property, but it's gross overreach for the government to decide that for them.
So clearly a lot of questions going to be answered by the U.S. Supreme Court whenever they do put out their ruling on the Hawaii case. And while all of that's going on in the courts, and again, I know it's been frustrating for a lot of the readers out there and the listeners is how long it's taking for the case to get through the judiciary all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the indecision by the appeals court in the Barnett case, and week after week after week after week of indecision from the U.S. Supreme Court. Clearly, there are going to be ongoing concerns about all of this. So where do you go from here? Well, you got to keep an eye out for other legislation that could be coming down the pike. At thecentersquare.com, you can see the story. Illinois Rifle Act sparks fierce debates as lawmakers return. This coming from our contributor, Katrina Barker, about House Bill 3320. Now, this is the Responsibility in Firearm Legislation Act. And whether or not this advances, not sure. It's still stuck in committee. So it would require firearm manufacturers operating in Illinois to obtain a new state permit and pay fees tied to the estimated cost of gun violence. This measure, again, if you click through the actual bill, you'll be able to see and exactly where this is at. Yeah, I'll accept the Illinois legislature's cookies. You've got a lot of people signing up for it, right, and sponsoring it, but it's still stuck in committee. You can see here the last action. It's stuck in committee, and that's despite having all of these co-sponsors added. So this is something to watch, and after it possibly moves out of the Rules Committee, where could it go from here? Big questions, and that's why you got to stay tuned here with The Center Square and Illinois in Focus Daily. All right, it is Friday. Gonna wrap things up and get going for that winter storm that's approaching. It's going to be a fun weekend, all right? Be sure to get the headlines in your inbox. Go to thecentersquare.com and be back with us on Monday as we bring you more Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop, and we'll see you soon. All right. Appreciate you guys' patience here. If you can't tell, doesn't really look like I did much, but I have adjusted and worked on the rig and engineered it. We've got some things we're doing behind the scenes to bring you even better content to keep you informed. So appreciate everybody tuning in and your patience this week, and we'll be back at it Monday. Have a great weekend, guys.